The joy of love. Good morning. Welcome to Radio Maria Ireland, and wave to everybody joining us now on Facebook Live and YouTube Live as well. Good to have your company today on this Wednesday morning, the 12th of January. So, Gomana Dia Yev. May the blessing of God be upon you all. Thanks for joining me here. Father Eamonn McCarthy, of course, is my name. To anybody who might be new and joining us for the first time, nice to have you with us. Please do connect in, please do check in, please do contact us here. As always, it's a moment of Chatechesis, so it's not all one way, I hope. Meant to be two-way conversation here, and I welcome indeed your participation in that. So as always, 089 467 2000 is the text and WhatsApp number here to get in touch with us. 089 467 2000. Put a plus 353 in front of that if you're connecting with us from the north or from outside of Ireland altogether. The international dialing code, of course. If you want to give a call here, 014 123 456. Christine is very kindly volunteering to help us out today and helping with Martina on the phone as well. So please do give a call. Mary's off for a little while, so we've a little turnaround of staff here going on, which is great. Nice to welcome Martina back as well, and Tara too after the Christmas. So good to have their company and yours too. So you can call us. There's several lines on that landline, 014 123 456 or plus 3531 4123 456, the very same. Email us, of course, info@radiomaria.ie, and write to us here at St. Anthony's Business Park, Ballymount Road, Dublin 22. Very good. Thanks indeed for that, and thanks for all the lovely communication and correspondence which flows into us here every day. And if you'd like to listen back to some of that, of course, we have a little slot after this, of course, after our midday prayer at 12:15 called Your Say. And on Your Say is the opportunity to hear back, indeed, some of the messages that come into us as well. Now, it may be that you don't want your message read out or you'd prefer to remain anonymous. Absolutely no problem. We can do that too, and we can add in your prayer intentions anonymously as well. So don't feel in any way inhibited there. We will respect that most certainly. Now, very good. The last of the calendars, as they say on Moore Street. Last year Radio Maria calendars now. My accent isn't too good there. What was it years ago on Moore Street? Last of the Rapping Piper. Whatever year I was walking down Moore Street, and all the sellers and hawkers and people who have all kinds of stuff they want to give you, cigarette lighters and who knows what. So the last of the calendars here, please do get in touch. We happily send them out to you. They're whittling away all the time. Maura is going to take another 10. I think Roisin is delivering a few more to some of her contacts today. So please do, if you'd like a bundle of calendars. We'll take some with us, of course, on the travels we'll be embarking upon, please God, these coming weekends. And thanks to Father George Hayes, the parish priest in Kenmare. Lovely part of Ireland, way down in the southwest corner there in Kerry. Looking forward to our visit down there, down to Dowris and Kilgarvan, their neighbouring parishes, a cluster of parishes there. Father John Cairns is based there too. So looking forward to a visit there with God's help this Saturday evening and Sunday morning at 5 of the masses, I think we have lined up there between Dowris and Kenmare and Kilgarvan. So looking forward to a trip to Kerry as the new year begins in earnest and we head off on our round of parishes once more. And please God, the following week going to Inniscarra in Cork, just west of the city there, not far from Ballincollig, known to many I'm sure, and Inniscarra on the Lee Valley, again lovely spot to visit there. Clero and Bearings, I think the two churches. I'm told that the usual Sunday Mass at Mautaha and Dripsey, for the moment at least, are not continuing. I think the churches are just too small, the location is just too, doesn't lend itself to I've seen that in a number of churches around the country. Whatever way the church is configured, it would mean social distancing would become a little bit awkward. So At any rate, please God, we'll visit our dear friend and of course presenter here, Margaret Griffin, based there in Ascara, and indeed some of our other dear friends and volunteers, please God, and new volunteers we hope as well. If you're in any of those parishes in and or around, please call up and say hello to us. We'll be there before and after Mass to chat with you. Next weekend in, again, Kenmare, and the following weekend in Ascara parishes too. And we're hoping indeed that Patricia and Pat Breen, and I think there's one or two others as well, looking forward to meeting them down in Kerry too. So little by little, slowly by slowly, building up wonderful promoters hither and yon all around the country, and just getting the word out about Radio Maria. So don't forget, you too can fulfill that role in a small way by chatting to others, by letting them know how to listen in, maybe taking a calendar to give them, and so on, a little bookmark to pass on. So we're just revisiting all our printing as I speak. And indeed, we're always need a bit of a financial help. If you'd like to sponsor some of our printing, we did have a listener kindly sponsored the calendar for us and helped us along with that, and is anxious to help us out with a little further sponsorship. We're having to revisit because we just run out of our compliment slips, our letterheads, the lovely envelopes. If you've been at the receiving end of the little C5, it's a half A4 size envelope. Or C6, is it? The envelope sizes. Anyway, we just have it printed nicely with the Radio Maria logo, an image of Our Lady, of course, and how to listen on it, just to make it attractive as it goes off in the post to you. And Ruth very kindly left on my desk there our new compliment slip, which has been just updated with our registered charity number, which is very important because there's a legal requirement now to put that on all of our communication, all our correspondence as well. So it's great to have to update these things. So we're at the moment, we're running out of all of these things. The shelves are being emptied, and that's the way I like it. Because as I often say to the gang, look, there's no point having all this stuff on the shelves. It needs to be off the shelves and out and into the hands of listeners and friends, and new potential listeners and new potential friends of Radio Maria. So there again, if you would like to help us in that regard and like to do a little bit of local promotion, just get in touch with us. Ruth will be chatting to you a little bit later about that as well. And join the team is the little expression that we have for that too. So please do, excuse me, Froggy is back as always. Please do get in touch with us. Behind me, our new little altar setting for ordinary time, now that we're back on camera again, having completed the Christmas season, is a beautiful statue, hand carved and gifted to us from the World Family of Radio Maria in honour of the year of St. Joseph. And it's real wood, and I forgot to bring in the little specification with me, which would tell me exactly what kind of wood it is. I think it's cedar, I may be mistaken. And the card that came with it shows the workshop and the men at work literally hand carving these statues. So it's a nice statue of St. Joseph holding the infant Jesus, and the faces are beautifully depicted as well. We should get a close-up for the camera here for you. And just really, we're very grateful to the World Family of Radio Maria, who shipped these out to all of the various radio stations at no small expense, because a hand-carved wooden statue, these things do not come cheap, because they're kind of custom designed, and each one is sort of custom made. So a lovely gift to receive. So I thought maybe appropriate to feature it here visually for you on the little altar behind me as a backdrop for the video element of this Chatechesis. Pope Francis is continuing his catechesis each Wednesday on St. Joseph. He's not letting us lose sight, even though the year of St. Joseph has passed. His general audience now is focusing on St. Joseph, and he looks today, today's the 12th, this Wednesday, is on Joseph's life as a worker, and says the dignity of labour is essential for our human development and our growth in holiness. That's so very true. Work is the key. It was a document that the bishops of Ireland produced many years ago. I should dig out my church social teaching there. It's in there. Laborum Exercens. Wasn't that one of the encyclicals that Pope St. John Paul II wrote as well? He was very strong on church social teaching, the exercise of work. So Pope Francis looks at how today, how the evangelists Matthew and Mark refer to Joseph as a carpenter, from the Greek word tekton. And tekton is partly migrated into English as a technician, technical, anything to do with that. There's techie. So he was a tekton. I suppose if St. Joseph were alive today, as a tekton, he might well be literate in technology and computers and so on. But it refers, it's a Greek word which Pope Francis reminds us is a word which refers to a generic qualification of those working as woodworkers and craftsmen in construction. So it's quite likely that he may well have been a stonemason too, as wood would have not been in great supply, I don't think, in Israel as a native product, let's say. More from the northern countries of Europe, as you know, if you remember your your geography from secondary school. A lot of timber would come from the Scandinavian countries. So the Pope says, he pointed out it was a hard job requiring strength and not generating great income either. That's true, I think, of construction in general. Excuse me, I remember taking a trip around Cove Cathedral. My brother was administrator there. We went up the just up the stairs, which isn't open to the public, but up to the where the bells are, the carillon for the bells, one of the famous carillons in Europe. And Adrian Gerbruers, of course, is a great carillonian. Am I right there? He plays the bells at intervals for New Year's Day now, for instance. A couple of YouTube videos of him playing the bells at Cove Cathedral. Very impressive. I do remember some years ago they replaced or refurbished some of the bells there. They're each named after saints, and to see how they were lifted up into place, extraordinary technology and engineering. Excuse me. But as we went up the stairs in the cathedral, at the turn, one of the stones, they're limestone of course, large blocks of limestone, had a lizard carved in it, as if the lizard was crawling up the stone. And apparently my brother told me that that was one of the tasks that was given to stonemasons when they came to site looking for work, was to prove their capacity and ability at stonemasonry and carving. Because if you look around the cathedral, I'm sure it's true of so many cathedrals, you have lovely ornate carvings again of angels and maybe even gargoyles on the outside. Again, a symbol of evil, and the church delivering and dispelling evil and repelling evil and keeping evil out. That's the thinking behind the gargoyles, the ugly images outside, that good and evil, are part of the same dynamic and the same battle. So when you see those on the outsides of buildings, that's some of what's going on there, the artistic representation of it. But at any rate, if you were a stonemason and you arrived on site and looking for work, you had to prove your capacity and ability. And so this lizard is carved and beautifully done. And of course, so well done that it was incorporated into the structure, but on the inside where it couldn't be seen, because there was, I presume, no part in the design for a lizard in the stonework of a cathedral. So it was put where it would be not seen in general. But on the stairs on the way up to the organ loft and to the carillon, if I'm pronouncing it there, or carillon maybe it is. So Joseph would have been a tekton of that order, and may well have been a gifted stonemason as well as a carpenter. But he's known, of course, in Scripture itself describes Jesus as the carpenter's son. But when it says carpenter's son, it means the son of the tekton. So it could well be indeed that he was a handyman as much as a carpenter. Looking at St. Joseph, then, the Pope says, reminds us of all workers today, especially those who do grueling work in mines and certain factories. And indeed the day-to-day toil of repetitive and mechanical or laborious, labour-intensive work that can be quite soul-destroying in factories and things, as it says. And we are so grateful to those who do what we might refer to sometimes as menial tasks, which is probably unfair, because no task in a way is menial. I mean, we have to do the washing up, we have to do the laundry, we have to hoover the house or whatever, sweep the floor, pull the weeds. They're all menial tasks, but they have to be done. If they're not done, the place is a mess. So they're not menial in the derogatory sense, except that they contribute to the greater, the cleanliness and good and well-being, let's say, of the infrastructure around us, as well as our own health and well-being too. He especially recalled, the Pope, those who are exploited, and children who are forced to work, and those who rummage among the trash in search of something useful to trade. Have you ever seen those pictures or images? Absolutely horrible to see children on garbage piles exposing themselves to who knows what dangers from what lurks within the pile. A lot of unhealthy stuff going on there, rats and every other whole thing. And indeed digging for anything that could be recycled and reused, and they might get a few pence for. It does bring to mind, those who are forced into this kind of labour, and indeed those who are trafficked for the purposes of labour, and not the nicest of labour either. Again, menial tasks, but also trade and prostitution. Evil, great evil of our day. And just got in the post there this morning, the latest edition of Africa. It has quite a dramatic painted picture on the front of it there of St. Bridget. She looks less like a saint there and more of a goddess, I would say. It has that sort of Celtic goddess look of it, rather than a saint with a habit and devoted to the Lord, and there's no sign of the cross of St. Bridget there. At any rate, an artistic representation. But in that edition of Africa, there's an article there. I haven't got to read it now yet. I was just reading the summary, which speaks of the question of human trafficking, and it's written by a religious sister, Eilish Coe, and she describes it as the hidden pandemic. And in that article, the summary tells me that she says that Ireland has the worst reputation in Europe for it dealing with human trafficking. And it goes on in this country, that kind of slave labour, and especially prostitution, it goes on here in Ireland. And our task is to be very, very aware and mindful of those we meet, in case, suspicious activity or maltreatment, or I don't know what, worth reading up a little bit and being aware of. Maybe it's a topic we should bring to the radio as well, that we might be mindful of it. And those staff of hotels particularly are asked to be very aware of it. I know there are groups that help instruct hotel staff to be acutely aware of guests that come in that might be being used. There's a certain anonymity, let's say, in a hotel, and they can be used for women especially. Awful thought, awful tragedy that should take place. And so again, something just to be aware of, and the Pope is all the while reminding us of this. So that's a kind of work that is without dignity and is actually slavery, and a horrible slavery at that, and criminal activity on top of that. So again, it's just awareness helps us at least a step towards all of that. So St. Joseph, again, a worker in his own way, and the Pope reminding us not a great wage earner, but nonetheless a valuable protector and guardian of the Holy Family. So reminding us then, the Pope, through St. Joseph, of those whose work is grueling and difficult. And again, those who are involved in the trade of children and women particularly. So this reality, the Pope, again, the one searching through the garbage and the trash, also brings to mind those who are out of work and suffering greatly because of it, especially families struggling to survive, because unemployment can be very debilitating and demoralizing, and can really work against a person's self-esteem. And if at all possible, again, if there's any way of encouraging those who are struggling to find work to at least engage in something that's creative, something that's gainful, as it were, even if it's voluntary, to do something. It's so important that we use our gifts and talents, whatever they might be. And you might have a certain gift or talent for something that others don't. And I think in the using of them and in the volunteering for something, I was always, I've said this before, mindful of that for my students in school. Look, volunteer. I don't care what you volunteer for. Let it be something good, of course, and wholesome. But engage with something because it's life-giving. We're not meant to be idle. We're not meant to be. Again, there are those who are unable to work, and that's all fine too. But those of us who are able to work and who can do so gainfully have an obligation towards those who are unable to for whatever other reason too. In these times of pandemic, many people have lost their jobs, the Pope says, and some, crushed by an unbearable burden, reach the point of taking their own lives. And I would like to remember each of them and their families today. It shows really, and the Pope he's shining a bright light really on the dignity of work and the importance of work, again, for the self-esteem and the wholesomeness and creativity it brings. So mindful of these difficult situations, and whatever we can do to play our part to help people towards gainful employment and work as well, or indeed voluntary activity. That's why I like the radio has that volunteer element. Not that coming to the studio is always necessary, but even locally some volunteer activity, like let's say promotion or prayer. And again, that's very uplifting and very that's bringing hope to others. It really is. The Pope also underlined that work is an essential part of human life and even a path of sanctification. And that's certainly true as well. Excuse me. That work is a path to holiness. Why? Well, when you understand holiness and its expression as self-giving, and charity is the best way understood with a capital C, of loving for God's sake, not loving for my sake or for my glory or for my elevation in any way. The salary is a helpful thing, of course, but that sanctification, meaning that it's so wholesome and uplifting both in body and in spirit and in mind too. That work, it's an essential part of human life. Even, again, if it comes down to the very simple, small things of minding the house at home, keeping the place habitable and comfortable, again, digging the weeds in the garden, putting out the trash, the garbage, the rubbish, all the little bits and pieces that make up a day, the little chores that can be tiresome and repetitive, but are part and parcel of our dignity as well as our sanctification. That we mightn't like some of those jobs, they might be our least favourite ones, and maybe they're the ones that we should work on the most or try to come to see the value of them. So work is not only a means of earning a living, it is also a place where we express ourselves, feel useful, and learn the great lesson of concreteness, which helps keep the spiritual life from becoming spiritualism. In other words, there's something earthy and real and tangible about getting our fingernails dirty, digging and pulling up weeds, getting our hands dirty, putting out the smells and the unpleasantness of cleaning toilets, that kind of stuff. It keeps the spiritual life from becoming too esoteric, is that the right word, or just too living up in the spirit. That it's no good rushing off to adoration and prayer if it is that there's a sink full of washing up to be done. That makes no sense. That our task, maybe our duty, lies in attending to the needs at home. If you're listening to Father Billy Swan earlier, he was just referred to Jordan Peterson and his 12 steps and just on the path of virtue. And interesting because Peterson is, well, I think he's on the path to Catholicism myself. I could argue that he's certainly very interested in the whole area of Christianity and what Scripture has to say. And he's discovering new truths on that journey and talks about it and struggles with it, as indeed we all should. But he speaks of making your bed as kind of, if you want to solve the world's problems, make your bed. Apply yourself to the tasks of the day, the mundane ones, the simple ones, the things that can be achieved, and achieve those, and then apply yourself to all the bigger tasks. It's an interesting way of embracing the world's problems by tackling our own. The sad fact is that labour often becomes trapped in problems related to social injustice rather than being protected to respect human dignity and guarantee livelihoods, the Pope observed. He said it would be good to ask ourselves as well with what spirit we carry out our daily work and how our work relates to others and our destiny. I suppose, in other words, is it life-giving, or do we become bogged down? You know, it is that we can become workaholics too. I'm mindful of that. That work can be a way of avoiding our responsibilities too, and our tasks maybe. And we might like to stay at the more creative kind of work, the glamorous end of things, rather than the mundane. Comes into play here, the radio. It's interesting. We get those who like to be at the microphone and the glamorous end of things, if you could call it that. It isn't really. And then forget that there's any amount of difficult and arduous, repetitive work besides. Again, the simple things like the printing and the publishing, the phone calls, the letters, the emails, the visits, the kind of tiresome repetition, if you like, of just the grind of the sleeves rolled up, with churning out the audio and editing it and uploading it, and there's a lot of sort of donkey work, you might say, the engine room, as I describe sometimes. That activity to help maintain, again, what we seek to do in our ministry in the radio. That the glamorous end might well be the Facebook page or the photographs and the moments at the microphone live, maybe, if that's what you think. But we fool ourselves, you see, we kid ourselves. No, and the Pope is saying, in what spirit do we carry out that work, and mindful that, look, this is for the glory of God. That it doesn't matter whether it's, again, sweeping the corridor or putting the rubbish out or filling the dishwasher or emptying it. This is all part of what keeps a home holy and keeps a business holy. Maybe I could argue that too. And it keeps the ministry that we seek to do fruitful and God-oriented rather than worldly oriented. So it's not so much about success. Mother Teresa would say that to us, Saint Mother Teresa, but about fidelity to the task at hand. So Samuel maybe teaches us a bit of that today, doesn't he? Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So he wasn't sure. He was trying to figure out. He was trying to discern, and God was calling him. Samuel, Samuel. Here I am, Lord. I come to you. We thought it was Eli, and he was very obedient. Going to Eli, and Eli saying, well, no, hang on, I didn't call you. Go back and lie down. And so it was the third time it dawned on him that, look, this is the Lord calling. So speak, Lord, he was to reply, your servant is listening. And so when we listen and discern, and again take advice from Eli, was getting on in years now, his sight was failing him. So obviously he was a man of some years. He had learned a few lessons maybe along the way, and had learned something on the path of discernment as well, and helping Samuel to figure, look, what is the Lord calling to me in this? And so this is, the Pope is referring to the very same thing, I think, here for St. Joseph, and for us too, that our work is a calling, a vocation, and where is the Lord in it? Even in the small, simple, basic stuff. A great question to ask and to demand of ourselves. And again, it doesn't matter, if we're retired, for instance, or not in a day 9-to-5 job or whatever it is, still, there are tasks that come before us every day. Even if somehow we are otherwise incapacitated, there's still tasks each day. There's still little duties. There's still little ways that we contribute to the good. and give glory to God. So don't think it needs to be the big stuff for anybody here at the radio station. Not at all. Not at all. Everyone plays their part. There's no radio station without listeners. Let's not kid ourselves here. Everybody plays a part. And again, there's no... let the time for glory and for praise be the next life. Really. Let us not be pursuing that anyway as an end in itself. By all means, give praise and give thanks and give glory to God. But let that not be the end goal, as it were. So the Pope says it's good to see how Jesus himself worked and learned his trade from St. Joseph. So today we should ask ourselves what we can do to recover the value of work and what contribution we can make as the Church so that the work can be redeemed from the logic of mere profit and can be experienced as a fundamental right and duty of the person which expresses and increases his or her dignity. So very good. So St. Joseph, patron of the Church, you who, side by side with the Word made flesh, worked each day to earn your bread. Excuse me. So that's great. So Pope Francis just keeping St. Joseph before us, and nice and timely for the Pope too, given the lovely statue that's next to me here in the guest studio, gifted to us from the World Family of Radio Maria. We're very, very grateful indeed to them for that. Let's pause for a little piece of music. Jesus is working away at the mixing desk there. By the Grace of God, I think is that the title of it there, Jesus, from Joe Dunn. So again, if you'd like to get in touch, 089 467 2000 is the text and WhatsApp number, and give a call on 014 123456. So thanks to Joe who came to visit us here. Lovely interview we had with him lately as well, Thomas Roach. So we'll listen to a piece of music by Joe now and back after this.
Angels rise to greet the dawn, to take the suffering back home. The innocent that were never born, 'cause the losers are the winners here. By the grace of God, only by the grace of God, only by the grace of God, only by the grace now, only by the grace of God. And begin again. Rise to greet the dawn, to take our suffering back home. Of broken hearts that will never heal, 'cause the losers are the winners here. Yes, the losers are the winners here. Only by the grace of God. Only by the grace of God. Only by the grace of God.
Hi, for 1 minute of song, I will play a jingle.
Only by the grace now. Only by the grace of God. And begin again.
Hi, join me, Ruth, every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. on Join the Team, where we will speak to one of our volunteers about the wonderful work they are doing to help share the gift of Radio Maria Ireland across the country. Tune in to find out how you too can help in our mission to go out to the whole world and proclaim the good news.
Welcome back. Thanks for being with us and joining us here on Radio Maria. This is our morning Chatechesis here, and shout out to everybody who listens later. You listen on later on the day, or listen back to the podcast, or watch back here on Facebook or YouTube as well. Nice to have you with us too. It doesn't matter what time you're listening in or tuning in, you're always very welcome indeed. So that's Joe Dunn. Joe is a big fan of Radio Maria, and man, a great talent there. Lovely piece of music there, by the grace of God. His new CD that has come out there lately as well. So very good. Father Marius is keen on promoting Exodus 90. I watched the video link that he sent. If anybody, any of the men now, this is for men who are interested in taking on this very interesting time of prayer and fasting, and not just a Lenten thing. This is a 90-day exercise, and the idea is to really lock it in place for men in terms of just becoming the men they're called to be. And so it's a 3-step kind of program: prayer and fasting and fraternity is one of the key elements of it, and that you journey together as a small group of maybe 6 or 7, I think it is, with the spiritual director. And it's a daily task, and what the participants seek to do, it's a movement that began a number of years ago. It's been going here in Ireland, I think, the last 3 years or so. And the idea is that for men, again, to help them become the husband, the father, the man, the provider, the priest, indeed, that they are called to be through a regimen of not austerity, what's the word? Blank. Abstinence, at any rate, is part of it. And so some of the areas that we men are prone to is addictive type of behaviours, alcohol, social media, the internet technology, and that we can become enslaved by these things so easily, and neglect our duties, otherwise our work, the task in hand, and use these things as an escape. And so what men seek to do, coming together then in fellowship, is they introduce a life of prayer, a daily holy hour, not necessarily in front of the Blessed Sacrament, but a time of prayer set aside each day. Cold showers, which I think is probably a very demanding one, if it's something that, again, you really want to embrace this. There's no shrinking from it. A regimen of exercise, deliberate, that you count back to the group for as well. Vigorous exercise is recommended, I think, a few times a week as part of the schedule or the regimen, like a New Year's resolution almost in a way. And then abstaining from sweet things and snacks, abstaining from the phone and social media and all unnecessary digital activity, no television. So in other words, just fasting and getting control over ourselves, over all of these areas that we're inclined to indulge in too easily. And I'll come out with my hands up there as well. It's an easy kind of escape hatch for us. And instead, again, just reapplying those energies and those gifts that we have to our particular vocation in life. So it's quite tough. So there's prayer, there's fasting, austerity, I suppose, if that's the right word, and fellowship. So it's the fraternity is the good thing, where each member of each small group has another fellow member with them, who I forget, there's a name for that, who accompanies them and checks in with them every day as part of the journey to see how you're doing. And then there's a weekly meeting then to gather the men together, again 6 or 7 I think in each small group, and to help them on the path. So there was an online little conference that Father Marius organised. There was a number of other priests. Father Philip Kemmy was there, Father Jim Lenihan from Kerry, Philip Kemmy from Letterkenny, and Bishop Alan McGuckin was there. A number of priests were there, and 80 or 90 I think participants in it, and many of them who've done this journey have done it several times and have found it just life-changing and life-transforming. So the 17th of January is the start date, so that's 5 days time. If you or any man you know might be interested in Exodus 90, I can send you the link there of the video introduction from Father Marius. I can send you the Vimeo talk on it, or conference on it if you like, which is just over an hour long, that you can learn a lot more about it too. And I can put you in touch with Father Marius, and I think he's kind of coordinating, maybe with the help of others, getting local groups together. Exodus 90. So it's pretty intense, prayer and fasting, but fellowship and fraternity to help you on that path. And he says, well, look, actually it's quite impossible to do it. And the point of the exercise is not to prove how macho we might be. The very opposite, in fact. To prove that I cannot do this on my own. I cannot do this without the support of my brothers. I cannot do this without the help of God. We fall to our knees and we acknowledge that I am not able, and that these things, the food, the digital world, the attractions, the allurements of the flesh and the world and the devil, are difficult to overcome. It's a real battle. And so we kind of join forces and help each other to overcome our various addictions and struggles. So it's called Exodus 90, and I might chat a bit more with you about it too, but it's for men. There is a women's equivalent too, and I forget the title of it. It's a very similar one. I don't think they do the cold showers. But at any rate, it's striking. It's American, of course, and it has a kind of Navy SEAL sort of esque thing about it. There's something about the hoorah of that kind of thing, which I run a mile from myself. I rather like the idea of, helping each other along in our weakness. That we're on the battlefield, we're wounded, we're fallen, we're struggling, we know how hard it is, and we kind of pick each other up and pull each other along, and we pray with each other and for each other and encourage each other on the path of growing in selflessness. But on that lovely little video, there's some lovely testimonies, real heartfelt, from men with their various struggles, with addictions to, pornography, alcohol, self-seeking, and the world of the self, indulging in pity parties, just lacking maturity and not thinking or living for others. A lot of those little things which can afflict men and grab them so easily. We men are quite visually stimulated as well, things like YouTube and that. Apparently it's mostly men viewers, and I believe that. All these things, so, not that these things are bad in and of themselves, but it's getting that control that we ought to have, and then trusting in God. So it's about sort of relinquishing control, that God might control and direct. It's quite a striking movement there. Now I see my time has gone against me again, so thanks for being with me today. We'll chat more tomorrow, please God, for our Chatechesis at 11:15. We'll pause now, we'll wave goodbye to those on social media, but we'll stay with you, of course, on the radio. Time now for Angelus and Midday Prayer.